kind of give you an overview of how you can build single page apps with Kendo UI. I'm not going to touch I'll try to see if I can just quickly give you a whirlwind tour of what is Kendo UI, but majority of the focus will be to actually build a kind of a real world application which is like a gallery, and then try to go ahead with that, and then try to tell you how you can build single page apps using Kendo UI without much hassle. It's going to be easy to get the widgets onto the page. It will be easy to swap the views without much sweat. So that's the whole intent of today's the webinar on single page apps with Kendo UI. A little bit of info about myself. My name is Lohit Jian. I am a technical evangelist with Telric. I'm also a Microsoft MVP in the area of ASP.NET and IIS. I'm part of a local user group called Bangalore.NET User Group, one of the biggest and largest India's user groups for .NET. I'm also an author. This is my coordinates. If somebody wants to ping me, I'm on Twitter, and that's my official email ID. These are some of the websites where we keep writing. Telric.com, our main site, and TelricHelper.net, and then kasyapas.com is my personal blog where I mostly write on ASP.NET. And if you want to know more about me, that's the short URL, about.me/kasyapas. So that's about me. So coming back to the business for the day, I'm pretty sure many of you would be kind of wondering what exactly is SPA, right? SPA stands for Single Page Apps. So the concept of single page apps is nothing new. Actually, Microsoft had already done it with Office Web Access, like your Outlook Web Access. We used to call it as OWA. OWA. So basically what it used to do was you used to have frames, and then you never felt that the whole page is getting refreshed, rather chunks of data was getting refreshed. You click on the left hand frame, the right hand frame would show the message. So all in all, it was not like for every interaction the website, the whole page was being loaded. So the single page application concept is all about don't load for every interaction. Typical websites are done keeping in mind that, okay, you have different pages, so once you click on page number 2, if you are in web forms, you will do page 2.spx. If you are in MVC, you will say route/page 2 or whatever route you want to create. So it's a full page reload for that particular request, whereas the single page app is nothing like that. So it's basically you don't load for every interaction, rather load the full page once, use JavaScript to update the content. Basically I have chunks, or I have portions of the screens which needs to be painted, so I will use JavaScript to update that content, whereas the page gets loaded only once. The full page gets loaded only once. The content for the different portions, or as we call the right terminology is template. So the template gets updated, or the template is used to paint portions of the page using JavaScript. We use JavaScript to update those content. So that's what single page applications were all. So this was also known as like this concept of don't load for every interaction, load the full page only once, and then use JavaScript to update the portions of the screen, was actually also known as interactive web pages. So it's basically, I would say, like we are old is new again. Like we are coming back to the old technologies, but only thing that has changed is the JavaScript has become more powerful, and then your browsers are become more powerful, so you don't see that lags, or it's as easy, it's as simple as you're looking at a desktop-based application. So that's what it is. And then Kendo UI is actually a HTML5 based JavaScript client-side UI framework. Using Kendo UI, you can build HTML5 websites. You can create HTML5 web apps. You can create HTML5 data visualization. You can create HTML5 based hybrid mobile application. So Kendo UI is a framework. Kendo UI is an HTML5 based client-side UI framework, and then this was made for this. Like you can create single page applications with Kendo UI. You can create a normal web page with Kendo UI. The widgets that we provide as part of the Kendo UI is all HTML5 compliant. It runs on IE 7 and above, Firefox, Chrome, you name it. So we run it, and then we also do a lot of polyfilling when you're using some of your widgets. If there is no HTML5, it will split the VML, vector markup language, for all the graphs, charts, whereas if you're running in the latest and greatest browser, we will spit out the SVG. SVG is the standard for HTML5 for visualization. Similarly, it's the same case with other widgets, like we will look at the validation. We will look at if we allow you to write validation as if you are writing it for a HTML5 browser, but in a non-HTML5 browser, we will take care to make sure that the validation runs seamlessly and it behaves the same. So that's a little bit of brief about Kendo UI. If anybody is interested in to know more about that, let me just quickly show you where you can go. You just have to go to telric.com. And if you go here, we have a menu item which says products, and then you have Kendo UI, or you can directly come down here. If you see here, we have this Kendo UI, so you can click on learn more. Kendo UI, as I said, is made up of three things: web, and you can see here, the widgets are all mentioned here. So this is the extent to which we give you the widgets. If you see here, grid, list view, calendar, scheduler, these are all HTML5 compliant. The grid, the scheduler. The scheduler is HTML5 compliant. It runs on pretty much on all the HTML5 based browser, IE7, Firefox, ESR, Chrome, you name it, it's going to run. So these are the widgets that we give you. We also have this mobile widgets, and today we're going to be looking mostly into this framework that we provide. So as part of the Kendo UI, it's just not controls. It's also about these framework level items that we give you: data source, drag and drop facility, effects, globalization. With one line you can actually globalize your HTML, the whole JavaScript app. If you use our Kendo UI package. We also have inbuilt MVVM. You don't have to go to any other third-party frameworks. We also support you with single page app out of the box. That's what we go. So today's focus is going to be more on single page apps, and also the templating framework, validator, so you name it. So we pretty much have all the other things that we provide you. So coming back to the slides. So the SPAs are more than just interactive web pages. It's not just about, okay, I just load the HTML content at runtime using JavaScript and then just page. No, the SPAs are not just for that. The interactive side still reload full pages. And let's say you want to go to a second feature, or you want to go to you want to change the context. So that is done through page reload, right, in the interactive sites. Whereas with SPA, what happens is you change the features with dynamic content replacement. So basically, I want to go to an ad screen. So it's not that you're going to ad.aspx, or you're not going to the, your customer/ad. Rather, here what happens is I get the dynamic content and then I replace it within the DOM, and that's what the SPA frameworks allow you to do. You should not be taking care of, okay, here is an old view, let's delete that, or let's clear that off, and then, okay, here's a new view, and then let's paint that to the DOM, add it to the DOM. So you don't have to do that. So that's what the SPA frameworks are all there for. What they will provide you is, with certain constructs, certain components, which makes it easier, which makes your life easier to work with SPA. So Kendo UI and SPA, basically the Kendo UI SPA components are only three things: view, layout, and router. Today I'm going to be showing more on the view and the layout. Router concept, I'll just show you, how this can be done. I've been told, I'm going a little bit fast, so just let me know, folks, if I'm going too fast, because that is a normal thing that how I speak. But if anybody is feeling like, I'm going too fast and you're not able to kind of go with me, just let me know through the questions and answers panel, and then I will try to slow down, because I'm just running through this slide so that I can get to the meat of the demo. That's the webinar. That's the demo. I have a lot of things to show you, cool things to show you in the demo. So that's why I'm just going through the initial slides. And as I said, for the Kendo UI, I'm not going to do a deep dive into Kendo UI, because that's not the focus for the day. It's all about the SPA. How do you generate SPA using Kendo UI? So just let me know through the questions panel. If I'm going too fast, then I'll try to slow down. So coming back to the Kendo UI and SPA, how do we support it? We support it using three basic elements within the framework. First element is a view. As the name says, I talked about dynamic content. So we treat dynamic content as a view. We kind of, try to create something called as a view, and then say that, okay, this is one view in the page. if you take, like for example, today I'm going to be building a gallery. So in the gallery, I have a listing page, and then I have a details page, and then I have an add page. I want to add a new item. So for me, adding the form which contains the add scenario or the add functionality is a view, and then the content which contains the details is another view. The content which shows the listing is another view. So like that, the whole idea is that whatever screens that you want to build is considered as a view. And then what is a layout? A layout is a special type of view wherein it can actually render the sub views, meaning I can create an overall layout pretty similar to if you're coming from ASP.NET Web Forms. It's going to be like a master page. If you're coming from an ASP.NET MVC background, it's going to be like your layout pages. So what the layout does is it has portions where it tells you that, okay, maybe the left hand side is a menu, the middle content is actually the body or the main details. So like that, it places placeholders. So layout is a view, but it's a very special view wherein it can render sub views, whereas the views, they are independent. They cannot render sub views inside them. So you would have to use layouts if you're looking for composing more than one view. So it has to be through a layout. Router, all it does is it keeps looking at the the address bar, and then if there is any, so we can actually tell the router that, hey, if the user has set the URL something like this, for example, slash view 1, so I want you to intercept, and then when that happens, I want you to show maybe view 1 or maybe view 2 or something like that. So router kind of interjects or kind of looks at the address bar or your URLs, and then keeps looking out for fragments. We do this URL fragmenting wherein you say hash and then you say view 1 or hash slash view 1 or something like that. So it kind of understands that fragmenting, and then it knows that, oh, that's a route, and then he will pick it up, and then you can actually tell that, hey, when there is a route like / view 1, I want you to do this. When there is a route like / view 2, I want you to do this. So remember, this is not the ASP.NET MVC routing. Rather, this is on the client side. We are giving you this router framework wherein you can define your routes in the JavaScript, and then it all works client side. So this is not a server side. So today we're going to be focusing more on view on the layouts. Okay. So it's a demo time. So let me get to the demo. So what I have done is, in the interest of the time, I already gone ahead and then created an ASP.NET MVC application. Mind you, with Kendo UI, it doesn't matter what server-side technology you're working in. You can be in PHP, you can be in JSP, still Kendo UI will work, because remember, I told you that Kendo UI is a client-side HTML5 based JavaScript UI framework, right? With all the other data source, the framework.
Sorry, Lohit, I was just going to say, maybe you want to quickly put up a poll, which is just check with people on what technology are they developing on right now.
Yeah, let me do that. So folks, just help us out. I'm going to launch a poll now. Please take a couple of moments to kind of let me know, because that would give me kind of a bearing as to how I should kind of base it. So I see more number of folks around .NET applications, and then followed by second one is Java. Interestingly, third one is JavaScript application. So fine. And we have representations from the project management too. That's good. So that gives us a good mix. We see that only 65% have voted, so I request you to just take a moment to kind of take the poll. 71%. If you have not taken the poll, please go ahead.
Yeah, and in case you are using or developing on more than one applications or one application technology like Java and .NET, I would request you to choose the one that you are most often working on or most often worked on.
We have a question. By the time most of the other folks take the poll, we have a question where it says we cannot use it with Node.js as a server-side platform. Well, as I said, Kendo UI is more of a client-side UI technology. But if you want to build a Node.js server and then you want to use Jade and then create the UI, you can always do that because Jade is nothing but the UI framework there in the Node.js. And then all you need to do is pack in our JavaScript references and then write the code that is required to create the Kendo UI widgets on the client side, and then just mash it along and then send it back to the client, and then our controls light up when they reach the client. As I said, this is a client-side technology, whereas Node.js is a server-side technology. So yes, it is JavaScript in the Node.js, but it's more of a server. You're creating a server, you're listening to the request, you're sending back the responses. So when you send back a response, what you're sending a view. You may be using the Express, which is a ready-made MVC kind of a framework that Node.js provides you. So in the Express, you use Jade or any other UI framework. So you can actually use something like that, and then use our Kendo UI for creating the widgets, creating the SPA, but still get the data from your Node server. And there's another question: can we use this with Backbone.js? Yes, by all means. But I would say just wait. Let me show you what we have stored within the out of the box. Basically, if Backbone, I would assume you want to use it for MEVM or the data binding concepts, but I have it within the Kendo itself. I just told about we provide you some framework data sources. The framework level items, which is one of them is the MEVM out of the box. You just
I'm sorry, Lohit, we've lost you. Hello?
So I should be able to finish that and then show you, how you can do the data binding, how you can do the Backbone kind of, the views, everything. I'll show you when the poll is done, and then we get onto the demo. So we still see 57% has answered this poll, which is like, what's your experience level.
All right, just as the results of the older poll, almost about 55% of people were on .NET, and about 20% of you were on Java itself. So thank you so much. This is a new poll. Please do take a moment to answer this as well. This is about your experience, and we see quite a bit of you from different experience profiles. I think we can move on, Lohit.
Okay, so for those of you who are not a .NET guys, don't worry. All I'm doing is .NET as a server. That's it. In this example, the whole demo that I'm going to do, you can do with your JSP-based or the Java-based systems. All I'm doing is I'm using ASP.NET as a server. That's all, because I need to host it. I need some of the things to for example, I needed a service. The quickest way to build a service in .NET is to use ASP.NET MVC Web API, and it gives me the JSON-based service that I need, the REST endpoints. So that's all I'm doing. But if you're a Java guy, don't worry. Focus on the JavaScript that I'm going to do, because that is what you can do in your PHPs or the JSP. So without much further ado, let me show you what I've done. So this is Visual Studio 2013. All I've done beforehand, in the interest of the time, is add new project, and I said web, and then ASP.NET Web Application. Mind you, this is ASP.NET 4.5.2. So from the ASP.NET 4.5 onwards in Visual Studio 2013, there's only one item which says ASP.NET Web Application. This is known as one ASP.NET. So you give it a name, and then next. So let me do that. So this is the new template that comes up, and then it asks you what do you want to do. I have selected I want MVC and then Web API support, and then that's it. So now what happens is it has gone ahead and then created this particular solution. So nothing strange here. It's all NSV MVC based application structure. So there is an app start. So I have my Web API config and all those things. Let's not worry about that. Of course, Kendo. What I've done is beforehand, I have copied our Kendo style sheet that is required to work with Kendo UI. You just need 3 things. That is well, two things basically. One is the style sheet, one is this, another one is this JavaScript. So what I've done is I've copied our style sheet that is required. We need the kendo.common.min, and then we need the kendo.flat.min, and flat has its own folder structure. So I've used, so flat is a theme that we are using. And then I have, of course, I'm using the Bootstrap in order to kind of give the responsive UI. And then in the script section, what I've done is I've gone ahead beforehand and I've downloaded our kendo.all.min.js. So that's the JavaScript file that is required. So these are the only two things required. And of course, we rely on jQuery. So I'm using the jQuery, whatever comes with the the package with Visual Studio. And then I've created a folder called app. This is a best practice that, if you're not doing it, it's always a good thing to actually create a separate folder, like, whatever, it may be anything, but I'm calling it as app because I know I'm going to be creating an app. So, and I have an app.js. So I've just gone ahead and created an empty JavaScript file called app.js. Then I have to tell you what I've done. In the layout, if you see here, I have gone ahead and then added our style sheet. I need to refer style sheets, so I've added the style sheet. You may ask me, like, why didn't you bundle it? Yes, I could have bundled it, but I need to make sure that I tell you how to use this. So all you need to do is in the CSS bundle, just add to these guys. And then what I've done is I've also included a reference for kendo.all.min.js. And then here is my application.js. And then of course I have the script section that I need. So that's all it does. If you look at the layout itself, there's nothing. All I'm doing is I have a nav bar where it says Kendo UI SPA, kitten gallery, and then it says add kitten. If you see here, it just says add kitten. So then, of course, render body, footer, blah, 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 all those things. That's all layout is doing. And let me show you index.cshtml. So I'm going to keep my home controller and then the index.cshtml because I need the starting point. So in MVC, you need a controller and then you need the view for that, the action for that. So in the index.cshtml, if you see here, everything is empty. I don't have anything as of now. I just have div, class, row, style is equal to, whatever I've given. Of course, I've created a partial page called as templates.html. I'm going to tell you why we need that in a moment, but for now just assume that I have a templates.cshtml a partial page. So, and I'm calling it render page partial this one. So now let me run this and you'll see what we have. So it's going to be an empty. I have nothing. Correct? So except the nav bar that comes up. Oh, hang on. So underscore templates.cshtml, my bad. I put it as HTML, so it's CSHTML, and it said, hey, I can't find that file. So not a problem. So we're going to be back now. There you go. Where did I put a semicolon? It has to be here. Yeah. So as you can see, this is a Bootstrap-based UI. Of course, with the Visual Studio 2013 web forms and MVC, they come in with Bootstrap-based themes. All I've done is I've created the brand name, like just a application name, Kendo UI SPA. Then I say this is a kitten gallery, and then of course I want to add a new kitten, right? That's the concept here. So now let's go back and then start doing things. In order to let me increase the font. Just give me a second. By the way, if you have any questions, please keep logging on the questions panel. I don't think I'll be able to switch between the questions and then the presentations. I'll take it once I finish things. Okay, here's the thing. So in order to work with this demo, what I've done is there is a beautiful site called placekitten.com. So what this does is you just say placekitten.com/300/200. It will give you a random image of a kitten whose width and height is 300 by 200. So if I do this, there you go. So I can come back here and then say 310 by 210. And you will see different images coming up. So that is the premises, that is the base for kitten gallery. So we'll use this service to actually show kittens in the page. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, since we can do this, let me show you how you can start writing a view. So first, let's start and then say I want a kitten view. So what I'm going to do is, remember I told you we have this Kendo view. So I can just say new Kendo.view, and then I can just do this. IMG SRC is equal to HTTP. Let me copy this guy. So I can just say this, right? And close this tag, and then this. But I need to show this particular view somewhere. So what should we do? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to index.cshtml, and then I will say div id is equal to detail. Just assume that this is a detailed section. And then now what I'm going to do is I will go back to the app.js and say, hey, you know what? Figure out this guy called detail, and then I want his HTML to be kitten view dot render. So the Kendo view has a render method. So what it does is it is going to give you the complete HTML to you and then just do it. So now if I save this and then come back here and then reload my application, so what we should see is, I'm going to see an image coming up. So that's pretty much what it is. So I just said, hey, you know what? In the index.html, create a detailed section, and then when the page loads, I want to create a kitten view, which is having this, and then just do it. Well, this is fine, but I don't think mixing the HTML within the JavaScript is good. It's a very no. If you go ahead and then ask somebody, it's like, oh, this is bad. This is sin. You don't do this. So what I'm going to do is, remember I told you about the templates.cshtml. I think this is the time where I talked about this little bit of a slide. So let's talk about a little bit of the data binding. So before we actually go into the this template. So basically we have something called as Kendo.observable. So what I can do is I'm going to show you now the concept of data binding. So I can go here and then say, like, where kitten model is equal to Kendo.observable, and then I can just come in here and then say, hey, you know what, it has an URL property, and the URL will be this whatever place kitten that we have. So basically what I'm trying to do is, I'm extracting out the data part from the the markup part. So now here what I can do is, let me take it to the next row. Yeah, so what I can do now is, instead of hard coding the data within the markup, I can now come back here and then say, remove the SRC property and then say data.bind is equal to, we have this shorthand expression called attribute, and then I can say SRC is equal to URL. Okay, so just take a moment to understand what we did. I created a view model. We have this concept of observable. So basically observable is nothing but I can do a two-way data binding with the UI and the model. So if something changes in the model, UI gets updated. If something changes in the UI, the model gets updated. So that's what I did. I just extracted the data part of it and I said, hey, let's go ahead and then do a data binding. I don't want to rely on the hard-coded data. So that's what I said. So this is something that we provide. The data bind is the data-attributes HTML5 provides, but our engine understands that, oh, there's a binding, and then ATTR is the Kendo UI's binding expression. I'm saying I want to bind to an attribute called SRC on the image tag, to a property called URL on the data, on the view model, right? And then you just do the same thing. So now let me go back and then refresh. Okay, what happened? Oh yeah, I know, I made a mistake. So now here's a good learning. So this is fine. So I just created the HTML, but what about the data? Where is the data, right? So what you can do is, we can come back here and then say, hey, you know what, view, here is a model for you. So I just say kitten model, and then come back here and then do an F5. Now you will see that, the image comes up. So let me go back once again. So I created a view model. I created the view, and did the data binding, and I said to the view that, hey view, I will give you the data. The data is here, the kitten model. And then when you render, the Kendo UI will automatically go look at the data binding and then bind it and then give it to you. Simple as that, right? So there you go. So we get getting the images. But there's one more thing that we need to take care, and so that's the demo we said. So is this SPA, is that all a SPA is all about? Like, we create the dynamic content and everything. No, this is just a first step. We have done a simple MEVM so far. All we did was we wrapped a view with a kendo.view, and not only that, it needs a kitten list, right? So before we get onto the listing of the kitten list, if somebody is a very experienced JavaScript programmer, he will say, like, you know what? This is ugly, man. You're having data. You took care of the data, but you didn't take care of the markup. You kept the markup as is. So here is something that I can do. Remember, we had the templates.cs HTML. So I'm going to go ahead and then say script, and I will say type, and then I will say X Kendo UI -template. Now, for those of you who know JavaScript very well, you will know that what I'm trying to do is I want to keep an HTML markup within the DOM, but I don't want it to be shown, or I don't want it to be rendered. So we are going to say this as kitten view template. So what we do is we go ahead and then give an ID which the browser cannot understand. If the browser sees that this type is something like text/CSS or text/JS, he's going to go and then parse it. But I don't want him to parse it because this contains a markup. There you go. The markup is img data-point attr source URL, right? So I don't want this to be rendered at runtime. I want it to be there in the DOM so that I can work on that. So now, if we've done that, how do we get the markup to the view? All you need to do is go to app.js and just paste the ID name of the template that is on the page. Remember, in the index.html, I have used ASP.NET MVC's concept of rendering a page. So it is composing the page at request time. When the response will be sent, it's just composing. So I took advantage of that feature, that wherein I can compose pages. So I have just said templates.cshtml, and then I've just kept the script. Okay. So now we can go to this and then say kitten/view.template is what I want for the kitten view. All right. Now if I go back here to the page and then refresh it again, well, there's nothing changed. It's still going to be showing the image. But what we did was we have gone ahead, created a view model, and then we have done a template, and then now we are binding the data in the template at runtime using the data binding concept of MEVM with Kendo UI. So till now, I hadn't used any other third-party frameworks. You don't need it. Why? Because we support MEVM, we support SPA through the Kendo.view and everything, right? So now this is fine, but we have a problem. The problem is, what about listing? We need to show some listing of kitten, right? So let's go ahead and then do some kitten listing. So for that to happen, what we should do is, let's go ahead and then create kitten data source. So whereas this is a kendo.data source. So here I'm showing you another concept. We have this concept of data source. The data source has this property called data. So what I'm going to do is, for now, I'm going to just go ahead and then say hard code it. So I will say this is kitten1, and then of course the URL. The URL is going to be something like http://kitten.com. First I will say 300, 200, and then I'm going to keep on changing it, maybe for 4 items. I'll paste 4 items. So here's the first one. So this is the second one. So for this guy, I will say just alter a little bit, because otherwise it caches the images and then kind of keeps giving you the same kitten things. So I'll just mix it up. So I'll say 301, 201. So what we just did now was, in the view model that we have, kitten view model. Oh, it went to 240. Let me just down in the width of the zoom in. So what we have done is we just created something called as kitten model, and then we have this kitten data source, and then I've used Kendo UI's data source concept, and then I have kitten1, kitten2, kitten3, kitten4. Right? Now, in order to display, we need something. So that something will be, I'll just create what we call as, I'll just say list, and then come back here and then create another template. Let me copy this line, and I'm going to showcase to you now how to create a widget. I'm going to create a list widget that we have. So now this, I'm going to say this is a kitten list template. So basically what we're going to do with the kitten list template is, let me, in the interest of the time, I'm going to just copy paste some of my code just to speed up things. So we don't need this guy, and we don't need this guy, and we don't need the style also. Okay, let me explain you what I'm doing. So I just place a div, and then I tell like, I want this div to be converted into list view. So this list view is a special magic word that Kendo engine understands. Data-role is nothing but an HTML5, kind of a spec. That is, you can have data-attribute. So we have this role attribute, and then Kendo engine will look at the role and then looks at, okay, this needs to be converted into a list view, but how? So I'm saying, you know what, I want you to convert into list view. Where is the source coming from? The source is actually coming from something called as kitten data source on your model that is provided, and I should be able to select single item, and now I need to provide a single item template, right? So I'm going to go ahead and then create a single item template. So the single item template is nothing but kitten list item template, attribute src URL, width is equal to 200. You can change whatever width you want, but that's what we did. So now what has happened is I have said this is the template, right? Now we need to create this view. So let's create similar to this. So this will be kitten list view, and this will be kitten list template. And of course, I'm going to be using the same model, kitten model, because that's where the data source is all about. Whereas instead of the hash detail, I'm going to be using hash list, and then I'm going to say kitten list view dot render. Okay. So now if I go back here and then do this, refresh the page, what we should see is, okay, we have a problem. Kitten list template. Kendo UI template, list view, kitten list item, kitten data source. Yes. Let me refresh again. Just give me a second. Seem to be running into a problem. Okay. Okay, got the problem. So it's not capital D, my mistake. So let me go back. There you go. So what just happened was we gone ahead, and then when the screen loads, we said, hey, you know what? Go ahead, create a kitten view into the detail, create a list view into the list, and here's the template, here's the model, here's the template, here's the model. So that's what you see. We have a list coming up on the top where it is showing 4 different kitten, and then we said one particular kitten to be selected and then shown, right? So now what next thing that we're going to do is, if I click on any of the kittens, I don't see the changes being reflected. That is, I don't see the bottom reflecting this particular change, whatever kitten I selected. So let's try to work on that one. So what we need is, if you look at my template, I already have data selectable single, but only thing I need to do is I need to handle an event. I need to bind an event. So I'm going to say event, and I will say change, and I will have a event handler called kitten selected. Okay, in my model, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead in the model, and then I'm going to say like, hey, you know what? I have a function called kitten selected, and it's going to have a parameter. So I need to know which kitten was selected. So first thing that I do is I go ahead and then find the index of the, my sender. I know it's a Kendo UI list view, and then I'm going to say select off. So basically that's how we come to know what item is selected. And then of course I'm going to have the current image, and then the current image I can get it through this dot kitten data source dot view of. So view will give me the current whatever array of current data. So I know my index. So I got this. So now you may be thinking like, no, I'm going to go ahead and then instantiate or whatever, do with something with the view. Well, we don't need to. Remember, we have this kitten model having a URL, and then we have bound this URL to the detail template here. If you see the detail template, it's using the URL, but how did I give it? So the detail template is using the kitten model. So all I need to do now is I just have to say, hey, this dot get or this dot set. So set is the way you actually use to propagate the changes. So I just have to set what is the current image URL, and that's it. And then now what should happen is, so let's go over again. I have an event on change of the list view. So list view supports the change event. Whenever somebody selects an item in the list view, it fires a change event. So I'm listening to that, and I said on the model I have a function called kitten selected. So in the function I'm getting the current image, and I just set the value of the URL because it is bound to the details view is bound to that. So now when I refresh this guy, of course it's showing some other image, but I can click on this. So remember, I see that I click on the second image, so the bottom now reflects whatever was changed. So I click on this, the other one. So see that? So now we are able to kind of pretty much handle a couple of things. So let's look at our slide. So template out of the JavaScript, needs a kitten list, and then all those things. So this is something that I was talking about, HTML templates. The HTML markup which makes up the view is nothing but a template. Should not be displayed before rendering. It should be kept in the DOM, and then it should be hidden from the view. Like, it shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be shown. But we'll use a script tag to actually keep it. So what does a script tag do? Basically it's passed by the browser, and if it sees that it's a text/JS, he will try to, with the parser will ready, immediately try to parse that code whatever is there, because it knows that it may be a JavaScript. But we don't want that to happen. So what we do is we set the type to something browser doesn't know. For example, there is nothing called as x-Kendo UI-template, but it's always a good practice to actually put something where you know what the code is all about. So the code was a Kendo UI template. So that's why we say x text/x-Kendo UI-template. So when browser comes to that line and then sees that the type is something it doesn't understand, he will say, okay, I don't know anything about you. I'm not going to parse you, but you will be there in the DOM. He's just going to keep it in the DOM and then move forward. So that's what I said. So Kendo UI template. So that's the demo we saw. This is something that I talked about in order to configure the widgets. Like you saw data-role, data-source, data- bind, all those things. So those are the data attributes to initialize and configure the widgets. Why we do that? Because the view, Kendo.view will be in full control instead of you doing everything. So you just let the view know, hey, here is a template, here is the model, and then he will orchestrate that data binding for you, and then you just sit back and then see that it's getting painted. So that's what we did. We show the list of kittens using the Kendo UI list view. That's the demo we saw. So what is the next step? So next step is to read image list from a server. So let me show you what I have already done. As I said, those of you who are in the ASP.NET world, you will understand that we have something called as ASP.NET Web API. So that's what I've done. So for others, just assume that I have created a service. This service is capable of sending the JSON data back and forth. So in order to illustrate that, let me bring up Fiddler. Fiddler is the HTTP sniffer. Just give me a second. It went into, or let me use a Postman, so that should not be a problem. So I have a Chrome extension called Postman. So what's my URL? My URL is 41137. For those of you who are kind of not getting what I'm doing, so Postman is a Chrome extension which allows you to do pretty similar to what Fiddler does. On my system, I think Fiddler kind of is doing an update now. I didn't update it before, so it's gone into an update. So what I've done is I've created an endpoint called as kittens. Okay, so now if you see here, I don't have anything. If you see, it says it's an ODATA. ODATA is a protocol that we use for data exchange, but it's a web API which is supporting ODATA on top of it. And I can just issue this command, and then it's returning me things. But I can actually go ahead and then post something to this. So the post is nothing but I'm going to go create a new item now. I will say ID is equal to 0 because I know on the server side I will create it. Whereas name, I will say this is kitten1, and URL is actually http www.placekitten.com, and then 301/201, just a arbitrary value. So what do I have? My content type, accept. Yeah, that's fine. The headers are fine. So let me go ahead and issue this guy. There you go. I have my first kitten created in my service. So now if I go ahead and then issue a request for get on the kittens, you will see that I have one. So what we're going to do now is we will go ahead and then create 4 more items like this. What happened to my, okay, oh, post is here. So I'm going to go ahead and then create a couple of more updates, post, all those things. So I will say 2, and this I will make it as 300, 200. Let's keep it at 2. Just for the sake of demo. So I'm going to say get. So there you go. I have 2 items as of now in my service, in my database, and I have created a ODATA service. So let me show you the code where what I'm talking about. So if you look at my, let me make it a little bit less zoomed out. So what we have done is we basically have done something like kitten data source, and then but this is hard-coded value, but that's not what we want. So we want to set this right. So we want to go to the service that I just showed you and then read data from there. So so you may be thinking, oh, it's going to be hard, but no, let me show you the simplest way, the most simpler way of reading data from any service which is returning you data in a JSON format. We have this concept of Kendo.data source. So this is a framework element, a framework object called as data source, right? So he supports something called as transport object. So for this transport object, all you need to tell is, hey, I will be connecting to ODATA. If you think you're connecting to a JSON, don't put the type, because once you put as ODATA, there are certain special flexibilities that our data source gets, because ODATA way of reading things, writing things is a little bit different. So that's why if we say, hey, I'm reading to the ODATA, he does a lot of things internally. And then you may be thinking, okay, I'm going to go ahead and then do code to read everything. No, I don't do all those things with Kendo UI data source. All I need to do is I just have to say, hey, you know what, where you should read? You should read the data from this endpoint. And you know what, the data type that they're going to send or you should ask for is JSON. That's all I'm going to say, right? And just to let you know that, if you see here, the ODATA sends its packages its data in a property called value. So I need to tell my data source that, hey, this is an ID, identifier field, and then the data will be found at value. So all I need to do is come back here and then just say schema. So we allow you to define the schema of the data that you're going to be reading at runtime. So I just say, hey, the identifier for the model that you should create is ID, and then the data that you can read is actually in a property called value. So this is important, because otherwise what happens is, if there was no packaging, let me show you the data again. So this is how the ODATA service will actually send back a JSON. It packages inside this property called value. So if it were to be a global level array, I didn't have to do anything. Our data source would figure out, like, okay, there is a results, like there is an array coming in, and then I should read it as is. But since it's packaged in a property, we need to tell our data source that, hey, you should read the data from this value property. And anything else we need to do? No, that's it. Kitten data source. If I look at the template, in the template we have already told that, hey, source is kitten data source. In the list, in the item template, we have said, hey, the URL comes from this attribute called URL. So we are good to go. So now if I come back and then refresh, remember we have only 2 kittens in the listings, right? So if I refresh, the 4 kittens that you're seeing was the previous hard-coded data. But now if I refresh, if everything goes well, we should see only 2. There you go. So with just 4 lines of coding, you can actually read data from any service. It's not just within the application. For us, for example, what I'm trying to say when I say within the application is the service is hosted within this ASP.NET app, right? So I'm just doing this / ODATA, but it doesn't matter. As long we can do cars, as long as the other side, other party can let you read, write everything. I can just come back here and then put a full-fledged HTTP URL here, and then he will do the same stuff that you saw now. Okay, so that's what we have done. So now if I go and then click on that, we'll see the same things. See here? Okay, this is fine, but we need to kind of go ahead and then make this add button working. For that to happen, we need to create the layout, because I should be able to bind this add button to a function, So, but now what has happened is, if you look at the source code, I have my layout.cshtml. So if you look at my views and then layout.cshtml, the complete HTML is here, right? But I don't want this way. I should be able to bind this add button that you see here, the anchor that you see here. I should be able to data bind to this button, so that when I click, I should be able to show the add form coming up. So there are a couple of things that we need to do. So let's get on with that. So I'm going to go ahead and then create a layout template now. So I'm going to say, let me, in the interest of the time, I'm going to just go ahead and copy paste a couple of things. Otherwise, you'll keep on looking at me typing. So instead of that, let me speed it up. I'll explain what I'm trying to do. So whatever you saw in the layout.cshtml, I will be bringing it over to my a template called as Kitten Gallery Layout Template. It's nothing. It's just going to have the same stuff that you saw in the layout.html, but I will be able to now data bind my add button to something called as add click, right? So this is the first step. So I just went ahead and then updated my templates. Next thing that I need to do is go to layout.cshtml and then remove pretty much everything that you see here, and keep the just keep the render body here. And I'm going to remove all these guys. So what I did was, in the layout.cshtml, I just kept this render body, and everything has been moved into templates.cshtml now, right? And then I have my list, I have my details. So they work the same. There's nothing difference in that one. But how do we get it rolling, right? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and create a Kendo layout now. So I call it as where layout is equal to new Kendo dot layout. So as you can see, and similarly, I just have to pass the template name first. So the template name is Kitten Gallery Layout Template. And of course, we would have to pass a model. So what we'll do is, for now, I'm going to just go ahead and then say model is equal to gallery model. Okay. Where's the gallery model? I'm going to create it now. So I'm going to come back here, and then I'll say where gallery model is equal to Kendo dot observable. And of course, if you remember, I had this add button somewhere. So I will just do this. So I have a function called as add clicked, and what we need to do is we would need to basically show another template called as add form. I'll create an add form for now later. So for now, what we can do is we can just say, hey, let's create the add also. So I'll show you what I'm doing with the add. So let's come back to this. I'll create one more template for the add. So the add button will have, add form will have 3 items. One is the text box to actually get the name, another one is the name, and then URL, another one is the template, the preview template, right? So if I look at the add form, just to make it look good, what I've done is I've gone ahead and then put all the bootstrap based stylings. So just bear with me. So I'm going to just paste it. And coming back here, I will create where add image model. And in the add image model, all I'm going to do is, for now, I'm going to just say kendo.observable. Remember, we need name and a URL to actually send to the server. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to just say name URL. So that's all. I mean, that's all I need for the add image. So now what I'm going to do is, for now, for a moment, I'm going to just comment out rendering the detail. Okay. We'll come back to the layout. Just hang on for a second. So I'm going to create add image view is equal to new kendo dot view. The add form template is kitten add form template, and I will add this, and it needs a model. Remember, we just created a model, and I will say add image model. And for a moment, as I said, I've commented out the detailed portion of it. So what I can do is I can come back here and then say, hey, you know what, in the details section, just for now, just show add views. I want to show you how the yeah, that should be fine. So let me come back here, refresh it. So I'll show you the add form markup. So as you can see here, anyway, don't worry about the layout because we still haven't rendered the layout, so that's why it's the whole the things are gone. But this is what the add form will look like. If you see here, I have an image name. I can say kitten3, and I can come back here and then do this place kitten.com/301, maybe 201, and there you go. So do you see the preview for whatever? If I change this guy, let's say 320, 220. There you go. So the preview just changes. So we'll come back to the save button. So now we need to go and then make sure that the whole layout is coming up properly. So what we will do is we will comment out all the renderings. You remember we had rendered the list, we had rendered the detail, we had rendered the add image view also. So what we'll do is we're just going to come back here and then do this way. And in the index.cshtml, what I have done is, in the templates.cshtml, I have this div called as just give me a second. So I'm just trying to figure out what's the SPA container. Okay, so what I'll do is basically I'm going to remove this from the index, and instead of these two divs, I'm going to now say, hey, you know what, I need a SPA container, just a placeholder, it doesn't matter. So because I want to show my complete layout inside this SPA container. So now I can come back here and then say this and this, and once I've created the layout, I can say I want the layout to be shown. So I'm going to say, like, I want the layout to be shown in SPA container dot HTML is equal to, we have the layout dot render, right? Then I can come back here. Layout provides me certain capabilities, like I can say show in, and I can say, remember we had the list, I can say, hey, in the layout there is something called as list. I want you to show kitten list view there, and in the detail section I want you to show add image view. That's it. So now what happens is, now I can go ahead and then run it again. You will see the template like the complete stuff coming back. There you go. And we read the data from the server, and we have the add form coming up. But this is fine. But if you notice, if I click on this, it's not able to show, it's not able to swap the view. So we need to take care of that. Meaning, when I click on add button, I should be able to getting the add form, but whereas when I click on the images, I need the kitten view coming up. So for that to happen, what we should do is we should first go ahead and look at how we have handled the kitten selected information. So that's here. If you see this, we had set this URL. So but setting the URL is not going to work out now, because the layout, we have a layout, and then layout need to be told what should be done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and then delete this guy and then use a mechanism where I can trigger my own custom event. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, an image has been selected, and what is the image that has been selected? It's the current image. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to handle this. So I have this kitten model dot bind. So we have this kitten model, and I can say kitten model dot bind, and what is the event it has to bind? It is image dot selected, and of course I need to handle it with a function. So I will say I have given a kitten. So here what now we can do is, instead of setting the URL in the function, we can just say, hey, kitten model dot set URL, kitten dot URL, and then layout dot show in detail kitten view. So I hope you understood what I'm trying to do. So whenever somebody clicks on an image, I'm triggering an image selected, and then I'm passing in the currently selected image. So that is being handled in this event handler. So this is the way to say, like, this function, this object has this event, and here is the event handler for that. So in the event handler, all I'm doing is I know that there's a kitten coming in, it has a URL, and I know there is a layout, and then I'm just saying, hey, in the layout detail section, I want you to show this. Okay, so that's all I did. And now in the add clicked, now what we can do is we can come back here and then say, okay, whenever somebody clicks on add, in the detail, I want you to show add image view. Okay, so now let's go back and then try to see what happens. Missed something somewhere, just give me a second. Kitten selected, image selected, current image. Let me check what's happening. Okay, so it's cribbing here. It's okay, my mistake. It's my spelling mistake. Let me rebuild. And we have the images coming in. There you go. See this? Now what happened was, whenever I click on the images, the kitten view is coming. Now when I click on add kitten, I get the add form. I hope you guys were able to kind of take a look at this, what's happening. So let me go back here. So when I click on the kittens, the kitten view is coming up. When I click on add kitten, the add form is coming up. So what we just did was, we have now basically gone ahead and then said, okay, swap the views. But you didn't have to do anything except tell the, if you see here, all we are doing is we are just saying, hey, layout, in this section I want you to show this view. In this section I want you to show this view. That's all we are doing. So now we need to handle the save button. So if you look at my template for the save, what I've done is I've already gone ahead and then added an event handler here, and the event handler says save clicked, right? So where should this be handled? So I have this add image model. So in the add image model, what I will do is I will handle this save clicked. So there you go. So I'm going to say save clicked. I'm going to say image save, name this dot get name this dot URL, trigger image dot save. So I need to handle add image model dot bind, and what I'm binding image colon new. Save. And in the function, what I should be doing is, I I will be getting a new image. And I just have to handle it. So for handling, what we should do, remember we have this kitten model here. If you look at this kitten model has a kitten data source, correct? So I will use this, and then since the data source is bound to my kittens, it will be added to the the service. We'll bind it to actually go and then update the service. So how we do that is, what I will do is, I'm going to say a function on my view model. I call it as add image. This is just to make sure, like, I don't, I'm following a pattern wherein the view model does not expose anything except a function, and then the outside world should not know how it handles the saving, all those things. So here I can come back here and then say, like, hey, you're getting some data, and so what I will do is, where image is equal to this dot kitten data source dot add. Just call the method add and pass the data that you got. So, and it will return me back with an image. And then in order to save with the data server side, all I have to do is kitten data source dot sync off. That's all I have to do, and then I will return an image. Okay. Now we have just created read. There is no write portion to that, right? So how do we actually write you may be wondering, oh, we have to convert, we have to post a lot of data, everything. No, with Kendo UI data source, it's much more simpler. Remember, I will be posting to the same URI because that's how all REST endpoints are all. They work on the get, put, post, delete, HTTP verb. So I will be doing a post to ODATA kittens. Data type is JSON, but the type, HTTP type, the verb that I will be doing is a post, right? So that's all is required. Basically, I just have to tell our data source that, hey, whenever you are creating a new item, the URL to use for creation is this. The data type that you should send or expect is or send is JSON, and the type that you should invoke is a HTTP post. That's all we need to set. Now coming back to add image, what are we doing? Add image, where image, data source, data, kitten data source, sync, return image, and then where is this handled? This is handled in the save. So in the save, what we need to do is, if you see here, I'm just doing where image kitten list model. Sorry, we have kitten model dot add image, and then I'm passing the new image. And then once I get back the new image, I just set kitten model dot set the URL to image.url, the new URL. And then I just say layout, show in detail the kitten view, because as soon as I click on save button, I just want the new item to be coming up into the list, and then it should be shown. So that's all it takes to save. So let's, and I also will like to put a breakpoint in my server side just to show that the data is coming. So let me show you that. So post, where is my post? Here is my post, and yes. Then come back here, I will refresh. It has read. I will say kitten 3 and http www.placekitten.com/310, maybe 210, whatever. And I click on, there you go. So now the data has been posted, right? Remember what I did? I just added the create URL here. And remember how I passed the data? I just said, if you look at the add image, I just said kitten data source dot add data, right? So that adding is nothing but a creation. Of course, we can do the read. I mean, what I'm showing is read and create. You can do the update and delete too in the similar manner. For now, I'm just going to be focusing on that. And then how did I pass the data? When I click on add image model, click on the save button, I'm just sending a JSON data. If you see here, name, this.get name, URL, this.get URL. So that is these two things that were bound to the form, and I'm just sending that data. So here it is, new image, calling the add image, and then I get back the newly saved image, and then we just show that. So the breakpoint now is on my server side. So if you see the post, the kitten whatever we have set, remember I said kitten 3, so that has come down to the server side, and I can just do an F5 now. There you go, the third image is coming now. If you think I'm bluffing, let me do a complete refresh. I'm doing control F5. There you go, the data is now stored in the server. Let me come back to Postman and then do and send. There you see the third one that's been added. So let me add one more. So I will say kitten 4 www.placekitten.com. maybe I'll do 320 by 220, and when I go out, okay, we got a new good. So let me remove this breakpoint. There you go. So I have now 4 items coming up. So I can do an F5. I'll get this guy. Of course, if you don't want initially the form coming up, you can always change it in the code. Now if I click on this, you can click on any kitten, so I see the image. So let me bring one more change, and that change is if I go to the templates and then I look at add kitten view template, I can actually do this. Come back here, put a breakpoint, put a span, and span do a data bind, and then say text is nothing but name. So now when I do an F5 and click on any kitten, what happened? Data bind, text, kitten view template. What do we have? Oh, okay, I know. We are not giving it the right value. Okay, I would have to expose this name again in the model and then do it. So that was a failed demo. That's fine. I hope you get the point, what I'm trying to do here. So when I click, I'm just setting the URL of the thing. I'm not actually giving the complete image. Otherwise, I would have bound even the name. Now I can play around like this. I'll click on add kitten. So there you go. So what we have done is there were 2 features that we just implemented. One was the listing. One was the adding a new kitten. And then of course I can actually come back and then edit a kitten, change everything. So what I wanted to showcase as part of this was using Kendo UI's views, layout, of course the router. We didn't touch upon the router. I'm already at 1 hour 45 minute mark, or close to 1 hour and then 15-minute mark. So I have 15 more minutes. But I had only these things to show, it is easy to create an SPA using Kendo UI. You just saw me creating a couple of templates. You just saw me creating a couple of codes. Everything is pattern based. That is MEVM. I have the data binding going. Nothing is hard coded. Everything is cleanly separated. And I just did a connection to the server. I read from the server. I created new items on the server. So basically, you can actually, as I said in the beginning, Kendo UI provides you the framework to create HTML5 websites or HTML5 web apps or SPA or data visualization apps or mobile apps, without much hassle. It's pretty easy. So having said that, I think that's all I had for the slides or demo. So as I said, add images and save, swapping view and demo, etc. Demo. The layout, it's a Kendo.view, renders as sub-views, like layout in MVC or master pages. It basically sets up your core HTML structure for the complete UI that you're building, the SPA app that you're building, and the current page will be rendered in the structure based on the portion that you want to be painted. Everything is browser, no server interaction. The DOM manipulation, that is the view swapping, everything happens in browser, no server interaction. So that's the demo we saw. That's pretty much what I had for today. So I'll just bring up my coordinates if anybody wants to kind of ping us. And now let me open up the Q&A. Okay, I'm going to start from the last. Can Kendo UI be considered as